Welcome back to my channel, Kelly Renee Everyday, where I'm here dedicated to teaching the fundamentals of crochet through beginner-friendly projects. So today what I've got for you is a really fun squishy blanket made out of blanket yarn, and I want to show you how to create this beautiful texture using just 2 stitches, the single and the double crochet. So let's get into it. Let's talk supplies. So first and foremost, we're going to need some blanket yarn. So in this particular case, you're going to notice that I have baby blanket yarn here and regular blanket yarn. Now they're both a super bulky size 6 blanket yarn, and just the reason that I chose the baby blanket yarn for this color was because it came in the white. Okay, the blanket yarn comes in an ivory, and I just wanted the white color, so it really was based on color. And then the Barnett blanket yarn that I chose is called dark gray. So white and dark gray. I will link these products down below for clarification if you need it. Now in this case, for the size blanket that I created, which was really quite large, and it actually fits on a queen size bed, it's 106 long by 66 wide. I needed 10 of the white and 2 of the gray, but that can vary depending on how large or small that you're going to be making it. Now additionally, I used a number 10 crochet hook. I needed a scissors. The tape was really just to determine my length, and then I used stitch markers to keep track of making sure that my sections were going to be even. So when I do the demonstration, I'm going to show you exactly how I use those so that I would have nice consistent sections. Okay, we are going to start by creating our foundation chain. Now our foundation chain is going to set the length of our blanket. Now in this particular case, we are only using 2 stitches. It's going to be the single and the double crochet. So that means that our length of our chain is going to be in multiples of 2. So any number that is going to be divided by 2 evenly. So an even number of stitches. And then we're going to add 3 chains at the end, because that's going to be a turn for us. So I am going to make a mini version of my blanket. Now I don't really know how many chains were in the length of my blanket, which was 106 inches long, because I just made it as long as I wanted to, but I made sure that it was an even number of stitches. So I just kept counting, 10, then 20, then 30, and so on, just so that I knew how long that it was going to be. And then I added 3 at the very end. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to take a number that is a multiple of 2. So I'm going to say 18, and then I'm going to add 3. So my length of my chain is going to be 21 inches long to make a mini blanket. Okay, but again, yours just needs to be an even number plus 3. So we're going to start by getting a slip knot and our hook on our yarn. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do our chain. So I'm going to do that 21 chains, so 18 and then plus 3. Now I want to make sure that my foundation chain here is going to be loose. Always chain on the loose side for your foundation to make sure that your work doesn't curl. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. Okay, now in the 4th chain from our hook, we are going to do a single crochet. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4 single crochet. So I'm going to go directly in, and I'm going to pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through. Okay, so what happened here, I'm going to kind of pull this out, is we have our chain of 18, and then we have a turn here. This turn is considered a double crochet. So it's like we're starting our row with a double crochet. So I am going to mark that stitch with a stitch marker. Okay. All right, and that's in there. And then I did a single crochet here. So now what we're going to do is continue to alternate. So since I just did a single crochet, in the next chain, I'm going to double crochet. So I'm going to yarn over first, go into my chain, yarn over, pull up that loop. I've got 3 on, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Now, this double crochet is taller than a single, so now when I go in, my next one is going to be a single crochet. It's going to kind of crunch it down or squish it down a little bit, and that's what's creating our texture. So single crochet. Now we're going to do another double. So yarn over, and again, we keep just alternating back and forth. This is such an easy thing to do. Then a single. So the only 2 stitches that you need to know how to make in crochet here, the double and the single crochet. So double, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. And then since we did a double, now it's single. It's a double, and alternating back and forth. I keep getting that in there. Okay, doubles. Now with single is next. Double is next. Alternating back and forth. And I only go around my finger once. A lot of times when I'm working, I do 2 loops around my finger, but because of the friction created by the blanket yarn, I find that, oopsie, that was a double, so now a single. I find that going around once is enough, and it creates the tension that I need. Double, and then single, there we go, and double. Now since we have that chain 3 on the end, which is representing a double crochet as our start, that means at the end of our chain here, because we have an even increment, we're going to end each row on a single. So we start each row on a double, and then we end on a single. So looks like that's going to work out for us. Single, double, second to last, and then I've got a single in the very last. There we go. Okay, so I ended on my single. So now what we had, you see we got these kind of puffed up. This isn't an even row because we didn't have the same size stitches. We alternated between the single and the double, and because of that alternating, it kind of squishes these doubles down, okay? And that's what creates the nice texture. So now I'm at the end here. This was my single crochet. So I started with a double, I ended with a single. Now I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to turn. Okay. Now this chain 3, just like it was at the beginning over here, this is a double crochet on my next row. So what I'm going to do is I am going to, since this is my double crochet and its base stitch is right here, I'm going to go in the second stitch and I'm going to single crochet. Okay. And I'm going to go right down. If you look in the top here, we've got our V's here. I'm going to single crochet into that next stitch, the second stitch in the row. Okay. And then I'm going to double crochet in the next stitch. Now, as we do this, because of the alternating on the previous row, our last stitch was a single, our double is on the top here. Then this one was a double, so our single is on the top of it. And then our double is on a single, and it's going to continue. So we're putting in the opposite stitch into the previous row. Now, before I get too far, I am going to mark this row at the beginning of where that double crochet started. Okay? And I'm going to continue on. So my last stitch was a double, so that means I'm going to do single. And I just keep alternating, then a single to a double, then a single, and then a double. Now, as we look at this, something that gives me a clue of where I'm at is you're going to notice that as we look here, my double just went into like a space. That was the single down below. Then this one is kind of a, I don't know, this is the crunch downs double crochet. My single is going to go into the top of that. And then I'm going to have a nice little space here to put my double in. So my doubles always go into the spaces. So, so that's kind of your clue of which stitch you're on. Or you can just look back a little bit and say, oh, that one's shorter, that's a single, and then double into that space there. Okay, and then a single. And we're just kind of loose. We're not tight on this. We just kind of let it flow over the top. So it's kind of fun to work with blanket yarn. And it's super soft. It's like butter, especially the baby blanket yarn. Double. And if you don't go perfectly into a stitch, guess what? The puffiness of this yarn kind of hides any imperfections that might occur. So you won't be able to see it. All you'll see is the nice texture that's created. So if you don't catch both V's, if you would, or if you go and you're like, oh, I didn't quite do it, but you want to keep continuing, you're alternating. Here's my single. I've got one last double. Now I'm to the end of my row, and I have this double crochet that I represented at the end of my previous row, and I've got it marked. And that is where into that space, I'm not going to try to go into the chain. Into the space itself is my single crochet. So I'm ending my row, like I said earlier, always on a single crochet. I start on a double and I end on a single. So that was my single crochet there that ended my row. I'm keeping my stitch marker in place. Now I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3. This is going to count when I turn as my double crochet, So I'm going to look at my next row here. My stitches on the top, I'm going to skip that first one because that's what my double crochet is coming out of. And I'm going to single crochet into the second stitch on that second row, which is the top of a double crochet from the previous row. And then double crochet, and then single crochet, and so on and so on and so on. Now before I get too far, I'm going to grab my stitch marker over here and I'm going to mark the beginning of that row. Okay. All right. Now that we have the stitch markers here, this is going to also help us to know when we're going to be changing our color. Now I wanted to have, you know, the same thickness of my main color, which is the white, between my stripes. So I did 12 rows. Now to count those 12 rows, I had 1, 2, and then I counted 3, 4, 5, 6 on one side, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the other side. So that made 12 rows. And then once I had my 12 rows, my section of 12 rows, then I did 2 rows, same thing, same pattern but with the gray. Okay, so I'm going to finish up this row here. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to switch colors as well. So let's finish up this row. So I did a double here. I'm going to do a single, double, and a single, and a double, and a single, and a double. And when we get to the end of this row, I'm just going to demonstrate how to change the colors. Now, you can determine the thickness of your main color and your stripe. I did 12 rows, which meant I had 6 stitch markers on both sides, okay? Because each time you go back and forth, you know, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. And so I had 12 rows total because that stitch marker was always at the beginning of a row. So when I had 6 and 6 on each side, then I had 12 rows total. Then once I had 12 rows total, I would switch my color. Okay. Okay. Oops. space, and then single, double in this last one right here, and then I'm going to do a single crochet right here. Now to switch color, what we do is we start the single crochet, but we don't pull the yarn through. We're actually going to yarn over with our new color. So in my case, it is gray. So I'm going to pull my gray in, and I'm going to leave a tail on my gray. So now I'm just going to hook this with the gray, and I'm just going to pull it through 1, 2. Okay, and now I need to grab where this is, and I'm going to do my 1, 2, 3. That's my chain 3. And now I am going to turn my work. Now before we start incorporating our gray as our stripe, what I want to do is show you how I incorporate my ends. And I like to do it as I go so I don't have them all to do at the very end. So I kind of hold right here, and I've got my white, and all I'm going to do is I am going to kind of pull it around, and we're just going to weave it back and forth underneath. Oopsie. We're going to weave it in and out underneath the stitches in that top row. So I'm just bringing my crochet hook, and I'm going back and forth along the top of that previous row right underneath those V's, where we're going to actually go in with our crochet hook. So I'm just going back and forth along there. And then as we incorporate the gray, we're going to make sure that we grab deep enough to get these as well. Okay, and then there's going to be no chance that it's going to come out. So I've got this last one. I'll just pull it through. You don't have to do it the whole length, but a number of stitches will suffice. So I've got that one kind of started to weave in, but then we're going to make sure that it gets in. And then with the gray, we're simply going to lay it over the top here, and we're going to crochet over the top. So as we look here, my double crochet is right here. So that means this very first stitch is not going to be, the space that we have here is not going to be the one we go in. So we're going to single crochet into the second stitch from the end. Now I'm going to lay this on the top. I'm going to put my crochet hook back in. I'm going to single crochet into the second, and I'm going to try to go underneath that white yarn that I have. I have this laid over the top. I'm going to rotate, or I'm going to yarn over, pull up that loop, yarn over, and pull through. Okay, so it looks like this, and I'm going to continue. Now I'm going to do a double crochet, so I'm going to yarn over, go in underneath, keep this on the top here, yarn over, pull up that third loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And we're going to continue to do that. So again, alternating between single and double crochet, double, going underneath, lay that on the top. And once you get it underneath for a couple of stitches at least, maybe one more, then we can cut those tails off, and we're good to go. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna cut my tails off at this point. There's my gray. I'm gonna get my white out of there, and then we're just gonna continue to alternate back and forth. So double crochet underneath. Okay, and then we continue with the very same back and forth. So when I did my row of gray, I went once in one direction and then back in the other. And then I switched my color back to white in that same way that we just did it. And then I continued and went back and forth. Now to get the spacing that I did, I had, as I told you, 12 rows, which meant that I had 6 stitch markers on one side and 6 on the other. Once I got 6 and 6, then I knew it was time to change colors. Then I didn't have to try to count my rows or try to keep track or go back and try to go in between here and determine how many rows there were. The stitch markers were my indicator. So again, I did 6 and 6, but you can do whatever spacing that you want for the design that you're creating. Okay, so so that really brings me to the very end of my tutorial. So So I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, I would appreciate you subscribing, liking, sharing, doing all the stuff to to help me to continue to grow my channel. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in my next tutorial.